This week on the Walk On podcast.
How do I want to spend most of my days? I don't want to live for vacation. I want to live every day and be liking what I'm doing. For me, happiness has to do with just not getting stuck when it's a bad day, just the everyday. It's not like these one-off, when I get married, when this happens, all of those things are great. But I think about the compounding days and really eliminate things that don't add to that equation.
If you're constantly pushing that enjoyment down the road, this perpetual satisfaction is perpetually deferred. And as a result, it leads to burnout. It leads to performance questions. Are you doing your best because you're not committed to it or you're exhausted? So I think that totally makes sense. I must look like a neon sign. Hello, and welcome to the Walk On podcast. We are starting our 5th season, which I can't believe. It's been an exciting journey. We welcome you in if this is your first time. If this is a continued listenership for you, welcome back. And so let me just start with a little boilerplate here about the Walk On podcast. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was really looking at what I wanted to do with the back half of my career. I'd gotten candidly a little bit burned out. I love my clients, but after, nearly 30 years in public relations and public affairs and the last decade owning a public affairs consulting firm, I was sort of trying to figure out what my best and highest use would be. I started reading lots of books and watching podcasts and YouTube videos and realized that I had spent for a good part of my career time in front of the camera on a microphone as a spokesperson for other companies. I love talking to people. So let's flip the script and have me do the interviewing. So that's what the podcast has been about. And we continue the journey now with this new season. And I'm thrilled to welcome on our first guest of the season, Erica Paolocelli. I have admired her for a number of years since moving back to the Finger Lakes. She is a partner and the current president and COO of Three Brothers Wineries and Warhorse Brewing, which is where I first encountered her. It is a tremendous business in the Finger Lakes region, which she's going to tell us about. But as part of that, what I was really also impressed with was her advocacy. I have done advocacy work most of my career. And so whether it was health and wellness or the Finger Lakes or the Finger Lakes beverage industry, she has been a vocal champion and stood up and worked with legislators to do the right things for our region. And now she's got a new endeavor, Synergy Social Wellness, which is really a premier wellness retreat. And so talk about someone who's following their passion and living with purpose. I couldn't think of a better guest to kick off this season. So Erica, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I know I gave a pretty broad overview there, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are today?
Sure. So 18 years ago now, almost 19, I was just freshly out of college. I went to school for dietetics, which is clinical nutrition, and came back home to the Finger Lakes. I was on my way to Missouri for a full ride, a master's in exercise nutrition and all of this. And I stumbled upon a little winery for a summer job called Nagy's Newland Vineyard and Winery. It was literally a 10 by 10 shack on Seneca Lake that probably no one had ever heard of before, including me. I had driven down this road. I lived in the Finger Lakes my whole life. On one side of the road is my aunt's house, and on the other side of the road is my grandfather's house, and I never knew it was there. So back then you look for jobs in the newspaper, right? So I circled some jobs, called up. I was looking for a summer job, pulled down the driveway to Nagy's Newland Vineyard and Winery. And I thought to myself, this can't be it. This place looks abandoned. And frankly, there were porta potties on the property, and that's a hard stop for me. So I put it in reverse. And I had my windows down because I was a broke college kid and my air conditioner didn't work. And I hear somebody yelling my name, Erica, are you here for an interview? And I was like, oh, shoot.
I almost escaped.
Yes. Yeah. And that person was Dave Mansfield. Dave is the person who dreamt up Three Brothers. He is the person who in his mind thought, I got to put 3 wineries in the same location. And I met with him. And back then, and if you know Dave, but especially back then when he was just starting this business 18, 19 years ago, his energy was really electric. And it was the first time I had met somebody, honestly, that was just so passionate about their project and had complete autonomy. They weren't in this business. I had worked in hospitality my whole life since I was 13. And he was just so excited. And so I was like, I'm going to work here, for the
Porta
summer.
potties and all, I'm going to stay here.
And I was the only employee. And he was in the process of transitioning his old business to the new owners, and he had a contract with them. So he wasn't on site a lot. And so, like, 2 months in, I had to ask, like, do I ever get a day off? I worked literally I had a dentist appointment and I wasn't sure like how to go to it. And so he's like, oh my gosh, yes. And then he's like, why don't you hire somebody to come in? I'm like, how do I hire somebody? So that's kind of the start of it all. And by the end of that summer, he was hiring to get the place open, the actual 3 wineries. And I thought, you know what? This just feels really like where I need to be. I was so excited and honestly so naive. If I would have known what I know today, I would have never stayed. I never thought I could do what I ended up doing. And so I stayed. I deferred my ride in Missouri, and I was the first person in my family to even go to college. So
Wow.
my mom was just like, do whatever, she was like, you did your 4-year degree. Like, if this feels right to you, she was just proud, and supportive.
Yeah.
So it wasn't hard for me to do that. And then I just kept working. I set up all 3 wineries. Dave is a dreamer. He is a person with big ideas, but he is not an organized person. So we make the perfect pair. I do a lot of the taking his dreams out of the sky and then making them reality, and also kind of like putting a realistic approach to timeline, budget,
Yeah.
all of that. And so over the years, we just worked really, really well together. 5 or 6 years in, him and his wife, Luann, asked me to partner with them. And at first, it was just sweat equity. They wanted me to continue to grow with the company. They knew I was in a place where I was really focusing on growing professionally. And I was sitting on all these boards and stuff, but there was a lot I couldn't do without ownership in the company. And they wanted me to be able to do that. They were really, really supportive with me being like the face of Three Brothers. And so it was started with just 1% ownership, sweat equity. This is a way for you to continue growing professionally. And then there was an opportunity for me to continue to buy stock from that point on, which I did year after year after year. And so that's kind of how I got to where I am today at Three Brothers. And over the years, we grew from me being the first employee and the only employee to 150 employees. And
So I want to talk about that, Erica, because and let's take a second and provide some context for people, because our audience is from all over the country and in fact several places around the world. So walk them through what Three Brothers and Warhorse and I lovingly call it Six Flags over the Finger Lakes, right? Because it's this big playground for the Finger Lakes hospitality industry. So talk a little bit about what the business is, and maybe let's spend some time going from how you go from that shack with porta potties to what it is today.
Sure. Yeah. So Three Brothers started as 3 distinctly different wineries, 3 different tasting rooms, all within walking distance on one campus. And I want to say like 5 or 6 years in, we added a tap room. And then over I would say over the first 10 years, we did like 25 additions. We just kept growing and growing and growing. We quickly became the most visited destination winery in the Finger Lakes. And we see
It's amazing.
it's really hard to tell because we have all these locations on the property.
Yep.
Today, as it sits, Three Brothers is 3 wineries, a brewery. It has a cafe. We have a welcome center, a slushy hut. We have like satellite bars throughout the vineyard. It's a sprawling campus where you come, park, walk around, and we really strive to have something that everybody will like. So everything from our sustainably farmed wines that are beautiful right off of our vineyard to sweet wines that entry-level drinkers may like better, or someone who just likes sweet wine. We have wine slushies. We have a coffee brand. We have our own roasted beans. We have a coffee house on site. We have a wine slushy brand that we manufacture. And with that, we also have hard cider and craft soda in our portfolio. So really, Three Brothers is a destination. Like you say, a lot of people say it's the Disneyland of the Finger Lakes.
Yeah.
And I used to feel like that because Disneyland to me is like kind of cheesy, but at the end of the day, I'm like, Disney World is the best
Yeah.
in their class. They have,
Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
I think people are referencing is the experience because one
Mhm.
thing we learned really early on is to differentiate ourselves. We needed to make the experience at Three Brothers
Mhm.
is very different. A lot of the wineries in the Finger Lakes, you know what to expect, and it's beautiful. You go in, there's a view of the lake, there's a vineyard, and there's, wines. And it's kind of like the same setup with a different view. And we really wanted to differentiate. So we did that by the experience. Each tasting room is very different from the next.
Mhm. Yeah. So as you think about this now 18, 20-year career at this amazing facility, what did you start to learn about yourself? If and I gather you're a fairly introspective person. Over the last couple of years, what did you start to gather about yourself? And then how did that lead you to this new venture that you've launched?
Yeah, sure. So over my time, you mentioned some of the advocacy that I've done and some of the boards I've sat on and things like that. Younger version of myself was really, I would say, looking to prove that I had a seat at that table. And
Mhm.
in my mind, that meant serving on different boards and advocating and putting myself out there. Part of my job at Three Brothers is also to be the face within our own community, within the wineries, and be helpful there. So again, really this comes down to Dave and Luann's support of me spending so much time outside of the winery. I mean, there was one point when I was like on the board of the IDA, on like 3 bank boards, on 2 marketing boards. I was the wine trail president. I spent a ton of time on all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then over the last few years, I really started to, well, I got a little frustrated legislatively. I'm sure a lot of people get
Yep.
burned out of that pretty quickly. And I really thought, like, where am I? Okay, that's all good, but where am I providing the most value? And
Yeah.
so I really drew back and was more selective on what was most fulfilling to me as far as the boards that I serve on, and then also where I could provide the most value on those boards. From my experience, there was like a lot of boards that I was serving on that were just, I wasn't going to make any change. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure those boards have changed in the last 20 years. I'm not sure. So I really pulled back from a lot of this, and that allowed me to refocus. And you were talking a little bit about your career in the beginning and how you
Yeah.
were thinking through that. And I'm sure you've heard of Ikigai, that exercise. So a few years ago, I was just feeling like I did the thing. I built Dave's dream. Three Brothers is Dave's brainchild. It's got his name written
Mhm.
all over it. And of course, I have a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that business and
Yeah.
more hours than anybody. But I was thinking like in this next part of my career, what does that look like for me? And what can I build? I know
Mhm.
at my heart and my base, I'm an entrepreneur. I couldn't see myself going and working for anybody else, especially after working for someone like Dave. I mean, Dave is like, he's so supportive. It's incredible. It's his superpower is to put the right person in the right job and then just let them do it, which allowed me to grow to this point. And so I knew I wasn't ready to leave Three Brothers behind. I'd put so much into that, and my husband is a partner there now, and it's our life. But I also knew I was looking for the next step. And so when I did some of this soul searching, I went back to my roots, which was nutrition and wellness. And it was everything. I was living this way through these last, 18 years. And I was like, how can I take this entrepreneurial, spirit and then couple it with what I'm really passionate about outside of business and what I do in hospitality. And that's kind of this idea of a wellness center was born a couple years ago. I spent some time in Utah and over the winter, and I just started writing a business plan. And I said, I have to do this. It's been on my mind. It's something that's been calling to me for years. And so let's find a home for it. And I had already started doing retreats off site with once
Mm.
a year with my partner, Monica. And so I just wanted a physical location for somewhere in the Finger Lakes, not in Rochester or Syracuse or a city where you have to drive 45 minutes to an hour to get there. I wanted somewhere right in the heart of the Finger Lakes that people, our community, could come to and get premier health and wellness programming, functional medicine, all of these things that I was craving and couldn't find here. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where it started. I talked to Dave and Luann and I just said, like, this is what I'm going to be doing. I totally understand if you don't think I can do both, but this is where I'm at. And they, again, super supportive. They were like, Erica, you can do a lot of things all at one time. And so it's a slower rollout. It's a much smaller business, which I'm actually very happy with. But it's kind of, it blends my own ideas, my own passion with my business sense and everything I love about, like, I'm
Yeah.
the person that likes to look at financial statements. So that's kind of how it all happened. It was just,
Eric, I think if I can, I think one of the things I find super interesting about what you just shared is, you know, you are such a part of what Three Brothers has become, right? And clearly have ownership and literally, figuratively, and cosmically, but that wasn't, you didn't feel it was truly yours, and you wanted to find this next thing that was really yours. Would you mind speaking on that a little bit? I find that really fascinating.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, Davy's always said, like, this is yours, but at the end of the day, Bad Dare is not my personality. The one winery in the
Yeah.
back by the pond, it's just not me. A brewery that is war themed and, I find it interesting and I can definitely make it operational and make money. But that brand is not my brand. And so
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
over the years, was finding myself gravitating and making more personal relationships with people in the health and wellness industry, and also
Absolutely.
finding that people were really actually interested in what I was doing, how I was
Yeah.
staying really healthy. And that's kind of where I was like, that's my brand. And then it was kind of like, well, can I have my own brand and also have
Mhm.
this that sometimes conflicts? And I had to give myself permission to do that, and give myself permission just to let people know this is what I do at Three Brothers, and this is what I stand
Yeah.
for at Three Brothers, and this is what I'm proud of at Three Brothers. But this
Yeah.
is also something that is more my personal brand and what I'm proud of here. And I still navigate that sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but at the end of the day, I think transparency is the best policy. And so for me, there's a lot that I bring to the table at Three Brothers that I am very proud of. That place,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the business side of things, getting 150 employees, keeping them all happy, being able to pay the
Yeah.
bills every month, like a lot of things that are hard I've done. And
Yeah.
so, for me, I just made peace with
Yeah.
that's something I'm proud of. And this is also something that I'm proud of, but this is more my personality. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. And well, as people, right? We're not one dimensional. We're multifaceted. There are many things we're interested in. There are many parts of skill sets that we have. And so what you were doing is, I have a day job and I'm darn good at it, but there's this authentic self within me that I'm yearning to connect with. And I'm just going to do that next, in
Mhm.
addition to. And I,
Yeah.
I I think, I think it speaks to, leaning into who we are.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's not always easy. It's not.
No.
But for me, I feel really grateful for Dave and Luann again. If they weren't as supportive as they are, it would have been a lot harder for me to make any kind of transition or to figure out any next thing. But because they're like, so they're really grateful for everything I've done for them and their family and their business, but also just we've known each other for so long. We're like family. And
Yeah.
so they just really want to see me happy.
It's great. That's great. So, well, let's talk about that happiness. So, how do you define living with and or leading with passion and purpose? What does that mean to you?
I think a lot about fulfillment and contentment, right? So I talked a little bit about how I was getting a little burned out with all the boards and things that I was in, like, really what that gave back to me and how fulfilling it was. And at the end of the day, when I think about my happiness, I think about the day-to-day life I want to live. And so at some point in your life, I think this happens for everybody. You just start prioritizing things and thinking about,
Mm.
well, I only have this set amount of time left on the earth, right? And so
Yeah.
how do I want to spend most of my days? And I've always said I don't want to live for vacation. I just don't.
Right. Right.
I want to live every day and be liking what I'm doing, and the energy that I bring into the room, I'd like to uplift the energy in the room, And so for me, happiness has to do with just not getting stuck when it's a bad day, you know, the the everyday. It's not
Yeah.
like these one-off, when I get married, when this happens, all of those things are great. But I think about the compounding days and then kind of what that looks like for me, and really eliminate things that don't add to that equation, if that makes
I
sense.
think it does, and I think it's so powerful. Like if you're constantly living for or pushing that enjoyment down the road, that I just need to get through this because there's a vacation, as you said, or I need to get through this quarter because it's going to be crazy, and next quarter is going to be right. You're deferring. This perpetual satisfaction is perpetually deferred, and as a result, yeah, it leads to burnout. It leads to performance questions. Are you doing your best because you're not committed to it, or you're exhausted? So I think that totally makes sense, and I think more people, and I'm sure this is part of what the work you do at the new wellness center, but part of it is connecting to the now and present. And as you said, I've been reading a bunch of different books. I'm just wrapping a book called The 5 a.m. Club.
Oh, I love
That
that book.
talks
Robert Sharma, right? Robin Sharma.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah, yeah. That's who wrote it. And it's an interesting book. It's an interesting take on it. I have some critiques, but the point of finding your heartfulness now, finding your value now, living today, and as you said, stacking those things on top of each other, that's a life well lived. And I think if I take nothing else from today, not deferring my life, as you said, but really focusing on the moments today and how those stack, I think that's just a huge learning.
Yeah, and honestly, and I'm sure you've read it or it's on your list, but The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is
Yeah.
one of my all-time favorite books. And he talks a lot about being present, and that the moment you're in is the only moment you have, right? The moment that's
Yeah.
behind you is not there anymore, and the moment in front of you is not guaranteed. And so I read that book almost every year and try to reset, because we all lose
Yeah.
focus. But what I would really regret is waking up 5 years down the road and then being in a place that kind of was just on autopilot, that I didn't choose for myself. And so when I decided to really take the leap and make some changes in what I'm doing at the winery and starting this new business and bring it all together, I was thinking more along the lines of how I want my life to look every day. And so
Yeah.
that really helped me make the decisions that I still drive, like I said, I mentioned, I don't want 150 employees here. That's intentional. I have to keep reminding myself. I have 20, I think I have like 23 parking spots, and I keep like worrying about parking, and I'm like, I don't need more than 23 parking spots there, because
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
have so much parking at the winery, parking people every Saturday. And
Yeah.
so I constantly am having to like recalibrate, but at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I just want to I'd rather be happy on most days than just be happy on like vacation or something like that. So I really build my life in that direction.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting challenge to watch you go because of your skill set, because of the work you're doing. Well, we could add another venue, or we could add some residences to go along with that, and people could stay for the retreat. What you said, something that really resonated with me as an entrepreneur, and my business is, me to 5 employees, and I've gotten to a place where, people hire me for who's in my Rolodex and what's in my head, so I don't have employees anymore. So as a result of that, you're always working. There's no day off, and at the start of this year in February, I actually went to the Inns of Aurora for 4 or 5 days, and it goes back to some of the 5 a.m. club, but I was able to take some space and was so productive in just a couple days and had new visions and new enthusiasm. And so finding that space. So anyway, having said that, I think it'll be fascinating to watch these ideas and opportunities percolate for you and see what you do with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting for everyone involved.
Yeah. Well, one last question, because I appreciate your time and I want to be respectful. What advice do you have? And I think we've bantered some good ideas here, but what do you have in terms of advice for people who are trying to find their passion?
I think a lot of people get held up and they never take action because they either think things need to be perfect or all planned out, or they have to have everything figured out before they even get started. And so I think that your vision and your passion is going to change along the way. You just have to get started in the right direction, right? And so
Mhm.
I see a lot of people who just get stuck and never even try because they're just like, well, I can't, I have to get this figured out first. I have to do this first. And a lot of like social media and stuff is like, just quit your job and just do it. And
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I think really
Yeah.
you have to be responsible for yourself, right? And so taking into consideration what small steps can I take towards what I
Yeah.
think my vision and passion is? And that could just be doing some exercises, going to a retreat, getting it down on paper, all of that. And the other thing I'll say
Yeah.
that I think holds people back is they think other people have it all figured out. They think that other people are more qualified. They think that other people have a bigger vision or more money or I'll tell you, Dave started his sign company with nothing. His initial sign company with nothing. And this place, the wellness center that I sit in today, is completely self-funded. And
Yeah.
that's just where we're starting, right? I don't have enough
Yeah.
to do everything I'd like to do right now, but I started and I'm getting to a place where that'll come along. And
Yeah.
so I would say one thing I've learned over the last 18, 19 years of just doing things is when I sit in a room and I do have a seat at the table and I look around, no one has it figured out. Everybody is just
Yeah.
doing their best. And the people at the table are the people who took the risk, and they're the people who just gave themselves a shot. They bet on themselves.
Yeah.
And so when I did a cross country trip a couple of years ago, I mentioned I spent some time in Utah and we drove, and it's America is made up of small towns like Canandaigua,
Mhm.
Geneva, Seneca Falls. And those small towns, the heart of those small towns, what makes people want to live there are small businesses. And if
Mhm.
someone's passion is to do something in that vein, I would say that you have more support in your community than you know, and you're more
Mm.
valuable in your community than you know, because the big conglomerates of the world, yes, we need them, but they're not interesting. And think about when you go on a vacation, whenever you go, I'm looking for wellness spaces. I'm looking for cool spots to go, like Three Brothers. And so if that's in your head, I think
Yeah.
you have to just try to move in that right direction. And I would say the other piece of advice is to surround yourself with people who believe that you can do it. Because if you're
Yeah.
surrounding yourself, if you think you can do it, but nobody else in your tribe does, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so there's the power of the 5 closest people that you spend your time with. And when years ago, I did an audit, and there's some people you just have to let go of. They're not meant
Yeah.
for you anymore. So
Yeah.
that's a few things I would say off the top of my head. But
Yeah. Erica, I love how you talked about risk as an entrepreneur, because so often people think of risk as, oh my God, I have to risk it all. And what you're saying is take calculated, measured risks to go along the way. I have a coaching client who is looking to potentially transition in their career and not happy at their current employer. And they have some very big visions, and they're like, well, I can't quit my job tomorrow and go do that. No, but could you take a class to make sure that that skill and that industry is a place you want to be? Could you do some work on the side on the weekends, right? Just what you said is do some calculated steps that may feel risky, but it's not betting the farm, which actually there's a winery in the Finger Lakes called Betting the Farm. But
Burn.
so I loved how calculated that, because I think that does stop a lot of people. It's like, I have to risk it all, otherwise I'm not an entrepreneur and I'm not going for it. And I think that's a mistake on
Right.
both sides of the equation.
There's always a risk. At Three
Yeah.
Brothers, we have a list of failures, right? Things that didn't work out and things that cost us a lot of money, and they were complete failures. And we don't live there. We get to a
Yeah.
dead end, we don't just build a house there. We turn around and we find
Mm.
another way to do things. And so same here, if this wellness space isn't what I think it can be, there's an exit strategy. There's another.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be okay. Everybody's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
so will I lose money? Yeah. But will I have regret? No. So,
Yeah.
there's always a risk in everything's not gonna work out for
Yeah.
everyone, right? But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I'd rather live with the risk than the regret, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think I want to end it with what you said that was really powerful for me just now. A lot was, but one thing in particular, you may end up on a dead end street, but you're not going to build a house there. And I think that's so amazing. It's true. What's the worst that can happen? You just turn your car around, you find the way out, and you go forward. And I love that. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. It's flown by. I appreciate you being on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was fun. It was nice.
Yes. Well, this is the Walk On podcast, people leading with passion and purpose, providing a roadmap for your personal journey. Hear their stories, find your passion, walk on. Erica, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Next up on the Walk On podcast, community is at the center of that work. So, how do you keep that part and parcel in front of your mind when you're doing the legislative work that you're doing?
Sometimes I think we, in those of us in politics, in elected office, can forget that these aren't jobs. This is public service. Public service is always rooted in who you are serving. The district I represent is a very unique district because it's pretty diverse in all senses of that word. That is the community, and those are the voices that I have the responsibility of advocating for at the state level. So when I say community focused or community driven, it's really those individuals, those neighbors that I am working for and serving on their behalf in the state senate.
I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to prove by getting to you. It was only a matter of time.